and hello, and welcome to a new episode of Walk with Me, the podcast. I am your host, Bédard, and today I have a very, very, very special guest with me. I have Marie-Helene Brody. Hi, Marie-Helene.
Hi, Marie-Eve.
How are you
Nice to be
today?
here. I'm good. Nice to be here. Thank you.
Super. I actually wanted to preface this. I am putting together something with the women in my life that has had an impact on my journey at different levels and different times of my life. And I have, seen so much strength in our own family because Marie-Helene Brody is actually my grande cousine, so your mom's cousin, basically.
Yeah.
And I think that the last time that we did speak to each other, like face to face in like real time,
Mhm.
is at my mother's funeral, I think. But we
That's
have been
true.
in contact. We have been in
That's true.
contact constantly, thanks to the technology. And
Yeah.
yeah, so thank you so much for being here, for sharing.
Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure.
It's a pleasure. Marie-Helene, can you please introduce yourself? I'm going to put your bio in, but I would love, love, love for you to just introduce yourself. What do you do in life? And what do you do as a hobby? There's always a link, obviously, like between what we do like in our work and what we do in our hobbies, and how our life experiences have influenced those choices. And then when you go from there, the conversations are they just flow so fluidly and
Right.
so beautifully.
So thank you. Yes. So it took me a long while to get where I am, but I found the work that makes me happy, that makes me forget everything else. That's my passion actually is I'm a speech language pathologist. I'm a bilingual speech language pathologist, and I work in private practice with young children, let's say between the ages of 2 and 13. Um, so I work with children who have disabilities, either language disorders or developmental disorders like autism, for example. And I work closely with families. So since the children are small, I mean, they are my client, but the parents are also my clients because the child needs their parent to function and to develop and to practice the skills that I'm trying to implement for them, because the parent are the ones that are living with the child on a daily basis. So I see myself a little bit like a coach, in the sense that I do the assessments and I direct the parents to what could be worked on. I mean, we decide this together, and then the parents have a bit of homework to do, and they go home and they practice what I've taught them, and then I follow them sometimes for many, many years, which I always find is a privilege to follow these families. I've seen children like before they go to school, so when they're 3, 4, and then I still see them when they go to school. So I talk to them about their first day of school, and um, I see them grow. So I mean, it's part of my job, but I find that a real privilege to follow families um, uh, uh, throughout their lifetimes. Like my oldest client just turned 13. Yeah, he just started high school, and he's becoming a man, so his voice is changing. But
Yes.
so it's very emotional for me. I build a relationship of trust with these families. I mean, oftentimes, when parents have children with special needs, it's very hard on the relationship of the couple between the parents. And sometimes, unfortunately, the stress is so much, or the parents don't get along, so they don't agree on this new situation with their common child. sometimes parents get separated. So, I mean, I follow parents. I'm not a psychologist, but there is a part of counseling. I follow these parents through different events of their lives. I also have a lot of young moms. I mean, when you have a child that's 2, and we're assessing the child and seeing what's going on, like, is it just a delay and then it's going to be over, or is there something more? Oftentimes it happens that the mom is already pregnant with another child. So we go through that also. Disorders like language disorders and developmental disorders run in families. So sometimes by the time child number 1 is diagnosed, mom is already pregnant with child number 2, and it often happens that when that second child is born and becomes 2 or 3 years old, I get a phone call from the parents saying, "Could you follow my second child?" Because it often happens in families. So just to say that I enjoy that social part of supporting them and guiding them in their child's language development, but I'm also part of all of these other events that parents go through. And so that's my job. On a personal level, I'm married. I'm soon going to be 50. I'm still having a hard time saying that, but yeah,
I can see that.
in January. Oh, it's hard. Yeah. That in menopause, it's true.
Okay, there's so many things. There's so many things here, and there's just to go back to what you do in the work, and this is interesting because I think that there's been we can sense that what you do is you assess and you get a plan together for a child. So the client is your child. But when we're whether we're dealing with adults, but specifically because I've worked with children as well. So I was helping the mom, and then the mom requested some some support for the child. I was like, well, I don't usually do children. I love children. I've worked like science vulgarization, like teaching nature to, I've done that like a lot with children. So I know how to make things fun for them. But then you get into a relationship where you're not only supporting the child to self-lead basically, but you're also supporting the parent in the relationship with their children. So it is a lot of balls that are in the air. And as you pointed out, you're not a psychologist, but at the same time, it takes a village. So we all have our little different pieces of the puzzle that we're putting into place and that we're supporting the best that we can. And this is where I think that when we are coming together as different therapists or like coaches or whatever to support a family or support like somebody in the different types of situation that they have is paramount. And in your situation specifically where you're saying, well, by the time that the first child is diagnosed and the second child is already on the way, and often it happens that one of the parents or both parents are also in that same period of time diagnosed with some sort of like ADHD, autism, like neurodiversity in itself. So it's interesting dynamic because you are basically coaching them in a situation where they are dealing with a change, because it's a big change, like you have children, you expect them to grow like, you were growing, and then something happens. So you kind of like have to course correct. And often we're not equipped to do that just because we're so resistant to change, or we're so resistant to different things that happens that were not according to the plan, right? So I think it's really interesting that the work that you're doing. And yes, it is a type of coaching, because coaching is just to help somebody from point A to B. That's what coaching means, right? Like so I just wanted to, because I think that a lot of people that are doing coaching services are not necessarily comfortable with the word coaching, because like everybody's a coach, but at the same time yes, everybody's a coach, but like there's so many different types of coaching, and
Of
this is where
course.
I need to underline the fact that when you see a coach, like there's so many different types of coaching. What do you need when you're choosing it, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's interesting. So why
Yeah.
50? Why is 50 challenging you?
I I've never felt my age. I've never felt the biological age that I was. I've always felt younger than my age. My dad is the same. He's 91 and he keeps asking everybody, how old do you think I am? How old do you think I am? But we don't in my family the age is not, I mean, we celebrate birthdays, but it's not it's just a number. It's really not. We're very we have very young spirits, and we're a family that, I mean, we don't take ourselves seriously. So I grew up in that kind of atmosphere. So when I see the number 50, and I do find that it's, I mean, 40 was also hard, I have to say, but 50 is just, I guess, because it's like more than half your life. I don't know. It's this whole relationship with getting old, and I was mentioning menopause. It's just that it's I'm in menopause right now, and it's rock and roll. Like it's it's really something physically, for my mental functioning also. It's really very difficult. So I guess it's because I don't want to be 50. I don't feel 50, and it pisses me off that I have this number that's it's coming. I mean, it's
Yeah, you
coming.
can't do anything about
There's
it.
nothing I
Yeah, of
can
course.
do. No,
Of course.
no.
And you're mentioning menopause, like I'm perimenopause, and I've been accompanying women like in this type, like in this change. And it's
Yeah,
also like what is so interesting nowadays with women is we get to 40 and we kind of like get to a point where we don't get a tiny rat's ass about what people are saying or like whatever. Like we're really like coming out of our shell. And then all of a sudden it's like, bam, that thing hits us. And we're like, what is going on here? You know, like,
yeah.
and you feel like very much out of control, and
Emotional.
there's like
Yeah,
increased anxiety, there's increased
yeah,
like there's so many shifts in our bodies that we see, but there's so many shifts in our bodies that we don't see, to the point
yeah.
where we're like, am I going crazy here? But it's all
Yes,
part of the process. And because
yes,
of these, society has been not talking about this, not supporting women in this
yeah,
life change. There's a reason why we call it like the great change, right? It's because
yeah,
it is a tremendous change. It's actually like just like puberty is a tremendous change. This is a tremendous
yeah.
change. And
Absolutely.
we are invited to really take care of ourselves in a different way. But at the same time, we are invited to like go find solutions that are not on a billboard, right? Like they're
Yeah.
not out there, but there are some beautiful ways of aging beautifully and having
Mhm.
such an impact that is decreasing a lot the side effects, I'm
The
gonna
symptoms.
say, the
Yeah, the
symptoms.
symptoms. Yeah,
Exactly,
yeah.
of menopause. So so if you're listening to
Mm.
this, just reach out, because there's something that you can do. Like you don't have to be like subject to all that, you know, like because everything, you know, and we're gonna dive into that because everything is normal. And when we actually go to the doctor, like, no, like I have incredible pain, I can't function. Oh yeah, it's normal because you're a woman. It's normal because you have, and we have spent our life being muted and being told that it's normal, but it's
Oh
not.
yeah.
And there's something that we can do at every stages of our life as women,
Or
and we
that
need
it's
to talk
or
about
that it's
this.
like or that it's psychological.
Yeah,
We're
yeah,
often told that it's psychological when menopause is it's a physical it's a physical thing. I mean, our
yeah.
hormones stop or they slowly dwindle and then they stop, but it's a physical thing. It has psychological effects, but the origin of it is physical. So, can you please take care of my body and not just like say it's just anxiety? Like, no, it's more than
No,
that.
no, exactly,
Yeah, there's
exactly.
not enough research on women in general, on women's health in general. There's not enough research.
Yeah, and it hasn't been a priority because,
No,
yeah.
no.
So we're actually going to go into that. So your hobby is actually a little bit linked to your experience. So like, we as women, we're raised to, get married one day and have children and basically live happily ever after. We all know that's not how it works. We can live happily ever after, but there are some, things that happen in life that kind of shift the courses that happen. And at some point you actually met your wonderful husband. 17 years ago, or no, you've been married 17 years, but you met him.
We met 17 years ago. Yeah, we've been married for, I think it's 14. Yeah,
14 years. And then what happened? Like, okay, we're gonna have children.
Right. So it's interesting that you said the happily ever after, because I think that I'm gonna say most women, because it's the feedback that I get, is that we believe, like you said, that it's magically going to happen, and that all of these, things that we want or that we think we deserve or whatever are just gonna magically happen. And sometimes they do, and that's good, but it's just that sometimes they don't. And I guess I was one of those people for whom it did not happen. So I met my partner in my early 30s, and I knew I wanted children. I was very determined about that, and he was on board with that. That was okay. And we tried for a few years, at home, wasn't working, went to fertility clinics. And I was raised in a family where we're not against mainstream medicine. That's not it, but we don't throw ourselves in it. Like, if there's another option, like a more natural option, then we'll do that. And I was having a real issue personally with injecting myself with all of those hormones. It scared me. And so I delayed, unfortunately, those treatments for a couple of years until my situation was like worse, because I was like 37. And that also, I find the doctors and just society in general we don't talk about women's things enough, but this is an important part, is that women's fertility years are not so many. And in a woman's fertility, 6 months or a year is huge. In a year or in 6 months, if you waited or if you've delayed something or you didn't go ahead with trying or with treatment, it has a big impact. Your body is already in decline in your 30s with fertility. And sometimes when I talk about that to people around me, it shocks them, because there are a lot of women who are like 36 or 37-year-old, and they want a child or another child, but our fertility is already declining in an important way at that age. And anyway, so we did the whole thing. I did insemination, I did in vitro. There are all kinds of protocols, but we even went for egg donation. And that also, it's just the whole process is full of periods of grieving for all kinds of things. And that one, which was my last treatment, was a treatment with egg donation. So I had to make the decision of trying this again one more time. We did the treatments for 5 years. Trying this one more time, and in my heart, it was my last time. I was physically exhausted, because those treatments are very, very
Invasive,
hard on the body. Yeah. Psychologically, just like, because I had several early miscarriages, So it's hard to get back from that, because it's like it's like a failure, right? You like, it didn't work out. And again, you had all these dreams. You see the positive pregnancy test, and you have all these dreams, and then it doesn't work out. So there's a lot. I mean, we call it the roller coaster. You know, you're like happy, and then it doesn't work out. Then you try again, and then, I mean, that is exhausting for the person who's living it, but it's also exhausting for the partner. It's exhausting for the family. I mean, I had family members tell me, like, I love you, but I don't know what to tell you anymore. Like, you keep doing this, it keeps not working, and I don't know what to say, you know? So, so we tried the treatment with the egg donor. So again, I got a pregnancy test, but it didn't stick. And so then, since I had decided it was my last treatment, like in my head, I'm like, okay, I'm stopping this. And then I took a pause, and I'm like, okay, and then what's in front of me? Like, what now? What, you know, like, this was my question, was, now what? Like,
the interesting thing that I hear is, because when you're going, like, just to know that it's difficult, that it's not going to happen naturally, is a grief by itself, right? Like, and then you try the next thing, and then the next thing, and then the next thing, for 5 years. And like you said, like, you did get pregnant, you did have a lot of miscarriage. That's another thing that we're not talking about at all. Women don't talk about miscarriages, the impact that it has on her body itself, like, just like physically what it does, but also the emotional compounded effect of those griefs that we actually. And then, because you're in a window of time where you have to, like, let's go, you're actually powering through and not processing what's going on at all.
Not at all. Not at all.
Not at all. And you're just like compounding emotionally, psychologically, physically, most likely spiritually as well, through all of these things, until and I've seen this so many often, until you're exhausted and you say, okay, like, I just can't anymore. But while you're in that cycle of, like, we're gonna try, there's always, like, the cycle of trying. But now you were at the end of it, and it's like, okay, what's next? Like, it's just le néant, right? Like, it was just, I guess, right? Is that what you felt like? Emptiness.
Yeah. Well, by that point, I felt that I needed to have extra help, because, I mean, I'm well surrounded by my family, but like I said, they didn't understand all what you've just described, all of those factors that happen to us when we go through an infertility journey, which is it's horrendous. I mean, there are many women that have PTSD because of these experiences. So anyway, so I said to myself, okay, I need to figure out where I'm at. And so I found a psychologist, and I was followed by her for 2 years, like, on a regular basis. It really took me that time to work on myself. And people say, like, I go see a psychologist, but it's hard work. It's really hard work. Like, you're going to go in there, and you're going to have to talk about your feelings. And it's well, really hard work.
Especially since you were saying, like, there's a compound effect of grief. You are at the end of something, confronting emptiness. You have most likely developed so much trauma linked to that. You probably feel like your body has betrayed you completely. You feel like a failure. You feel like you are like all of that is going on, in your case, for 5 years, like that little hamster in our head. So when we actually go to somebody, we push to so many things, but now we have to sit in that emptiness and start to sort through the garbage. you know, like what is
Yeah.
recycling and what is, but like it's your feeling.
Yeah.
It's everything that you don't want to confront about yourself. It's everything that you don't want to confront about your relationship. It's like, it is
Yeah.
hard work. It is hard work.
Yeah.
So you went there 2 years?
Yeah. And I would say that, let's say the two main lessons that I got from that therapy was, so the thing is that during all those years of trying to have a baby, I was always projecting myself in the future, right? Like, okay, we're prepping for the next IVF cycle. Okay, like, you know, I'm always in the future. And I realized that I was never in the present moment, because my psychologist at some point, I'd been seeing her for a while, and then she said, I don't remember how she told me it, but she said, but you are a person without children. Like, she told me what I was, like, you know, what I was. And that just like, she said that, and I was like, I was frozen. I'd been like a train, you know, like a train going forward, and just like, just keep going forward, not thinking, not. And when she said that, I was floored. I was like, she's right. I am a childless person. And it was the first time after all those years that I was like you said, just sitting with this reality. I am a childless woman. And I'd never, ever even thought about that. I mean, to tell you where I was not in contact with
Not in
my
contact
present
with
moment.
yourself, with the
Oh
present
my God.
moment. Yeah. No, I can totally relate to that. I can totally relate to that. There was a time in my life where I was just either living in the past or planning the future.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
present moment was so uncomfortable that I was
Yeah.
actually like, I was fighting to go everywhere else. And after my mom, the year my mom passed away, and I had my car accident, and I was immobilized in
Yeah.
bed with my grief of like a whole bunch of stuff.
Oh my.
And I was like, oh no, holy crap. Yeah.
Yeah.
So she
But
brought you
it's
back in the
interesting
present
that you,
moment.
yeah,
Sorry.
it's okay. It's interesting that you say that it's probably, thinking about it, it's probably because the circumstance is so horrible or painful that we project ourselves elsewhere, right? It's because it's so horrible. It's like denial. It's, I guess, some kind of a denial to, you know, denial is there to protect ourselves. There's a reason why we have denial. It's because it's so horrible that we can't even see it. You're absolutely right. So that's one of the lessons that I learned, is that I am a childless woman. And another lesson that I would say that I learned during those 2 years was to be kinder to myself, because I'm not very good at that. I'm
You want to
not
know a
very good
secret?
at
None of us are.
No,
We have to
no,
learn that. And there was no theme in school that says, be kind to yourself.
I know. We're
You know,
so
squish between
mean to
math,
ourselves.
and French classes. There was no class about that.
No, no, but we're so, I mean, if we listen to what we tell ourselves, it's
It's
horrible.
horrible. Actually, if think about this, if we would say to somebody else what we tell ourselves in our mind, that
Yeah,
is psychological abuse, and we do
yeah,
it to ourselves all the time. And this is where when I accompany women, and they actually realize that they
yeah,
would never ever say that to another person, and they would actually recognize that it's psychological abuse in somebody else, but then they're so used to being in that self deprecating thought process
yes,
and
yes, yes.
talking, that they don't even recognize that it is horrible. Yeah.
It's horrible. So, because that's what she was saying. She was saying, Marie-Helene, you're already living something horrible. Like, don't hit yourself on the head on top of that. And I guess I was ready to receive that message. I'm not saying I never do it again, but if I do it, I catch myself. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
come on, give yourself a break. Like, you know, you're doing your best. I'm doing my best. I can't do any more than my best. So yeah, it's very important to become aware of that. I mean, like you say, every human does that. There must be some kind of a reason for that. I guess it's what we've absorbed. I don't know, but it's important to become aware of that and to try as best we can to change that. Oh, a thought just came into my head. So during this healing, those healing years, I don't know how many years it took me, but a few years to heal. Like I said, I accept mainstream medicine and everything, but I do like all of those alternative approaches because I find that they're complementary. I mean, you talk about complementary medicine. I find that it gives us something else to heal ourselves, like acupuncture and things, osteopathy and things like that. But so I'm always searching the internet for little tricks to do, and I found this ritual, I guess, which I did when I was healing. It's the gratitude rock. I don't know if you've heard about it. So it's a little rock.
Explain it. Yeah. Go ahead. Explain it.
The gratitude, and I'm sorry, I don't remember where I found this. It's just it was on the internet. I don't remember where I found it, but so I chose this little rock, you know, a rock that's like nice and soft from being in the water, and it holds well in your hand. And I kept it in my pocket. So, you know, you put your hands in your pocket on a regular basis when you're, you know, going about your day. And the exercise was that every time you touch the rock, that you think about 3 things that you're grateful for. So it's like very short and sweet. You don't need to stop or go somewhere or buy something. It's just in your pocket. And on those really, really tough days at the beginning when I was not well at all, grieving because I couldn't become a mother and I wasn't going to have a baby, and this was not working, and I had to rebuild my identity and myself and where am I going in life and what's my value and all of that. Well, I would say, for example, on those hard days, I would say, I'm grateful because the sun is on my face. That's it, because that's all I can handle for today. But I found that that's very simple and regular, and it's just 3 things. It's not 1,000, it's just 3. It slowly trained me to look at things in a more positive way. There was a therapist of mine who said, there's always the moon, there's always the sun, like the sun being the positive things and the moon being the more difficult things. Like, you'll never take away the moon. There always will be crap. There always will be difficult things, but it's just not to focus only on that. So in my grief and in my pain, I chose to focus on slowly and gradually on positive things, even if they were so simple as the sun on my face, because the pain was so bad. It was so bad.
You said quite a few words here. Any exercise in gratitude is bringing us back to the present moment.
Yeah.
And the rock thing is a physical thing, but we can actually do it with a whole bunch of stuff. But the rock thing, I love it because it, like you said, it's in your pocket. It feels very soft. It reminds us, like there's a tone, there's a texture, there's a feeling, there's a vibration to it that brings us back to the present moment. And the exercise of spelling out, like, I have, you know, hot water, I have the sun on my face, I have a wonderful husband that loves me. Those 3 simple things that it doesn't even take a minute. It doesn't even take 30 seconds. as a psychological positive effect. So in the dark night, you see the stars. So every time you actually do that, it's like you're noticing a star. And at some point you notice that the sky that you thought that was so dark is full of stars. It's full of stars. And this is a very, very powerful and so simple. Like you even think like that's kind of, it's so simple. It can't be doing the effect, but it does the effect, and it does the effect.
It
And
does. It really
when
does.
we're really in pain, sometimes people are saying, oh, it's one day at a time. Sometimes I actually have had days where it was 1 hour at a time, 1 minute at a time, and sometimes it's one second to the second at a time. If I can just survive this next second, okay, I did. The next second, and we feel that we're building more strength as we move through these difficult times. And what the thing that you actually said, which is why it was so shocking for you when she said you are a childless woman, is that she finally like brought the identity forward, the one that was the identity that you are a childless woman, right? And identity shifts are so powerful in leading change, or transitioning through different life situation, because we feel like we've lost some sort of tag that we wanted, right? Like we wanted the I want children, I have children, that I'm a mother tag, like whatever that identity is. And we're losing that, and we don't know, like we've been focusing on that so long that we don't know what we are outside of that. And just by shifting that identity, which was super powerful for you, because you finally started, I think that's what I heard, you finally started to heal then, because you realized that was the path to healing, was to move through that, and to accept. When we talk about healing, it's not like, it's really like the acceptance of, not resignation, just like accepting what is. And the combination with your gratitude rock is so powerful, because it slowly builds and leads us to that healing place that we all seek to find. Thank you for that. That was amazing.
Very, very good analysis. Acceptance is what you're saying. Acceptance. Well, there's the phenomenon of acceptance, what is, and that's also the key to stop the suffering, right? If you accept what is, you don't have to like it, you don't have to love it, but just to accept, to say, okay, this is it, and I'll figure this out. To trust yourself to figure it out. But there was also the word is not coming in English, le lâcher prise.
Letting go. Just to let go.
Letting go of that dream, of that dream that you wanted. There's always this song that comes into my head it's the Rolling Stones. You can't always get what you can't always get what you want. It's always in my head, because it's true. You can't.
But you know that other part? But if you try sometime, you just might get what you need. I love that song. I love that you're bringing that song on, because it is right. Like it's not about not getting what we want or what we don't want. It's actually like, how am I showing up? How am I showing up? Like, what is the identity that I want to embody, and how am I going to move through this, knowing that I don't like the path to healing is to stop resisting, right? Like there are pains. I always say, like, there's pain that we can't avoid, but the more that we resist that pain, the more that we create suffering. So we might not have control on the pain part, but we have a lot of control on the suffering. The more I resist, the more. So when you were saying, like, you don't have to like it, but like when you start to accept what is and bring yourself back to the present moment and like counting the stars in your sky, and like slowly you get back on track. And that's true for any grieving. Unfortunately, in our society, when we talk about grieving, it's always a loss of someone. But we now talk about, you know, the grieving of our fertility, the, you know, the grieving of our dream, the grieving of a, like all of these other griefs are not on the forefront because we know we have a hard time accepting the regular grief. We don't talk about the other grief. Unfortunately, but yeah, that's something that we need to.
It's interesting when you're talking about being uncomfortable, because during those years when I was, you know, in fertility treatments and trying to have a child, and I mean, I wasn't a happy camper. So when I would socialize, it was a burden for me to socialize because I just wanted to be left alone. But sometimes my husband was like, "Come on, it's gonna be fun," and I'm like, "Okay, I'm gonna go." But then I found that people around me who knew that we were trying, that knew that I was in treatment, they felt really uncomfortable around me. They actually, people wouldn't ask me questions. They wouldn't ask me like, "How are you?" And I could sense their discomfort because it's uncomfortable to interact with someone that's like not doing well, you know?
So we don't know how to do that. Right. No, we don't know how to do that. And so often, like, we receive comments like, first of all, it's taxing on the body because you're going through all these stuff, you know, like, and your mood is like, because your hormone is like, rah, if you're getting the shots and everything. And then you get to the point where you're like, okay, like there's a balance between like, I need some time for myself, but I need to social. We're social animals, we're social people. So we are thriving with the right people. But the interesting thing that I love about this is the people that we were with before that happened are not necessarily our people when we go through that and when we get out of on the other end. And like any types of change, the first difficulty is like how it impacts our identity. The second one is how it impacts the relationship that we have with other people. And then because we are in a place that is uncomfortable or painful, people don't know how to be when the simplest thing is like to sit and to be, you know, like you don't have to. I was talking, you know, on the podcast with Catherine Emmanuel, we go into our fixing mode, right? You don't need to fix anything. I'm a human, you're a human, you've been through stuff, I've been through stuff. Like, can we just like, I don't need you to fix anything. I need you to just be with me, to just have a space where I can just like, you know, get some air a little bit. So as you go through that, as you went through that, your friends were having kids probably, right? On top of it.
Yeah, that was really hard.
Is it still hard or not? Not really.
It's a very good question. And I don't, it's not a black and white answer. I would say that in general, this whole healing journey is like, I would say 80% okay, like healed, in the sense that I now appreciate my life so much.
Can you say that again, Marie-Helene?
Yeah.
I want you to say that again.
I now appreciate my life so much. And it's interesting because the intensity of my grief before was so intense that I never thought I would get here. I never thought that I would get over this. To me, like, it wasn't even logical, but to me, my life was the end of my.
I'm getting emotional because I know what you're talking about, really. Not in the
Yeah.
context of childlessness, but like to be in a place where the pain
In a
is
place
so
where so
it's
bad.
so you
So
just can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. You can't even
no.
see that it's ever gonna be, and also,
Yeah.
like in different contexts to even think about that is kind of a betrayal of something else. But that's a different story. Going back to childlessness, you didn't even think you were going to be here one
I
day.
didn't think I was going to get over this thing. I couldn't see, like literally and figurative. Like I couldn't see over this mountain. I mean, when I was doing my sessions with my psychologist, at some point she just asked me the question, Marie-Helene, can we just consider the possibility that this might not work, because I was doing my treatment. And I stopped her. I'm like, no, I'm not talking about that. I can't even think about it. It's so horrible, because one of the difficulties that I learned why it was so difficult is because my identity of Marie-Helene was enmeshed with my identity of becoming a parent. To me, those were one thing, and I've had to separate those things, and I had to discover who is Marie-Helene without the parent part. Who am I? What do I like? How can I'm a natural helper. Like that's what I do in my job. I accompany and guide and help families. And so sorry, I lost my train of thought. But
It was one of the issue was you didn't know who Marie-Helene was without the parenting part. Like
yeah,
those
that's
two
it.
identity were so together, they were fused
Yes,
together, and you
yes.
wouldn't. Yeah, okay.
So that was part of my healing also, is to discover who I was, just me standing on my 2 feet, not in regards to anyone else. What's my value of Marie-Helene standing on my 2 feet? Period. Not a daughter, not a sister, not a mother,
Not a
just
wife.
me.
You.
Just me. What's my value? What are my qualifications? What are the good things about me? What are the things that I need to work on? And so this was a whole discovery, and I seek the psychologist to help me get through this. I couldn't do it on my own, but I also found a support group that is called Femmes sans enfants, and it's a group that was founded by Catherine Emmanuelle Delille, who you know and met and interviewed. And this group of women, so for many years I was part of the big group. Now I'm more in contact with just a few members of the group, and we've really become a family for one another. So we're for childless. I'm saying childless because we're not child-free. Childless women for different reasons. But just the fact that we are childless, meaning that this was not our choice.
Mm-hmm.
We see each other. We don't judge each other. And we have fun together. Sometimes we cry together, and we just meet each other on a regular basis. And that has really, I cannot express the value that those women have had and have in my life. I cannot express it. I find
How
that it's
did you
important.
how
Yeah.
did you how did you feel when you found, because there was a point where you were in therapy, and then you found that, for the listeners, if you haven't listened to the episode with Catherine Emmanuelle Delille, it's a beautiful episode that I recorded with her, because I'm child free. I actually chose not to have children, and to have a discussion with Catherine Emmanuelle, who's the founder of Women Without Children, but the Quebec chapter, which is Femmes sans enfants. And we have a beautiful conversation around her experience and about all of that. And I want to know for you, because when you actually were in therapy, you're doing the work, your relationships are changing, but you're not finding anybody that can actually resonate from the inside. This is what something that I was talking to Catherine Emmanuel, finding somebody that knows that experience from the inside. How did you feel when you finally found those women, these women?
Home.
Home.
Home. I was home. And it feels so good to be home.
After all these years, I'm pretty sure it was. Amazing.
It's just, you can relax. You feel, I mean, we talk about these terms, feel seen, feel heard, but I cannot explain how powerful it is to be seen and heard. It's just, it's everything. It's like, it's what we need as humans. It's just, we need that to feel good, to not be judged and to be able to say what you want and not have someone say, well, you shouldn't say this or that. Like, you know, we need to share sometimes things that are difficult to say, but yes, I find that it's very important to find those people that will welcome you and know what you were talking about. Like I said, the women with whom I meet sometimes now, we don't have exactly the same story. Some couldn't find a partner. I mean, there are all kinds of stories, but there is a common ground. I mean, we were talking about when we make other people uncomfortable and socially, and grief is a human feeling. Everybody has gone through that. It's a common. I find that we're very divisive in our society. You can have lost a pet, you can have lost a job, you can have lost your health because you had a sickness or because you broke your leg. You can have lost a longtime friend. I mean, we all know that feeling. It's not from the same cause, but you know,
we've experienced some loss of some kind at some point, and we can relate to some degree. Yes, that's for you. Yes.
Of course.
And there's a lot of parallels that we can, you know, that we can draw. But the problem is that most people have not necessarily processed those losses the way that we are processing it, and our pain is making them uncomfortable in their pain because they didn't want to connect in the first place to that loss. So that is a lot of the times, you know, what happens, and then the sheer amount of things that come out of people's mouths. Like, did you think 2 seconds before you tell me this, you know? So on top of everything else, we have to shield ourselves. We have to, you know, like there's a whole bunch of like little, but when you get to that place with women that understand you from the inside, even if they don't have the same exact reason why they're childless, there's a whole bunch of like masks that I guess that you don't have to wear anymore because
yes, exactly. You can be. That's a very, very good point that you're making. Is the mask can come off. That's I having a light bulb moment here. You're right. When you're with people who will not judge you and who love you and who respect you and who understand you, you can take off the mask. And during those years when I wasn't well and I was grieving, and my husband was like, "Oh, come on, you haven't seen, you know, our friends in a while. They're wondering about you," and I just didn't want to go. I had to put on the mask. And it is, I came back home and I was exhausted.
Oh yeah, because those masks were heavy.
Fake it.
Yeah. Wow. So when you found these women, actually, I want to know, like, this must have accelerated that who is Marie-Helene without any of those
Yes.
other tags. Like if I remove all the masks, all the tags, all the everything, what's left? Like what is my value as a person? That's where you started to talk about your experience, I guess, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah. And I started to be more active in the childless community. So the two main groups that I'm part of are Femmes sans enfants, which is the Quebec group, francophone group of Catherine Emmanuel de Lille. I'm also part of another movement called World Childless Week, and it's kind of today's kind of special. Today, to me, today's is pretty. Sorry. Today is pretty special for me because we are October 15th, and in World Childless Week, October 15 is the day that we do the wave of light.
What is that?
So the wave of light. So the World Childless Week was founded by Stephanie Joy Phillips, who is in Europe. And it's an international
Organization.
group,
Yeah, organization.
organization.
And they have a
Yeah.
week. We just passed in September. There was a whole week dedicated to that.
Yeah.
There was a, I'll put the link
Yeah.
in the show note for people that want to find that organization as well. Because there was a lot of incredible panels like every year, but like this year was like, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So you can participate, you can just listen and watch, you can write. There's all kinds of ways to express yourself in regards to this whole childless process. What was I gonna say?
You're part of, so you're active with the Femmes sans enfants, but you're also active with
Yes. The wave of life. So on October 15th, it's the day where we do the wave of life. So it's wave of life. Whoa, I said life instead of light.
Well,
interesting. So basically at 7 o'clock in your own time zone, at 7 o'clock, we light one or more candles, whatever, to remember the children that we have either lost or the children that we wanted to have and that we didn't get to have. It's just a way of It's a way of remembering. And since it's 7 o'clock on everybody's time zone, well, at some point, it's somebody else at 7 o'clock and somebody else at 7 o'clock. So that
creates the
becomes
wave.
a wave. Yeah, we let the candles burn for at least an hour. Yeah, and think about the children that we lost, either physically lost or just the children that we would have liked to have and that we didn't get to have. So we think about them for that hour. So I find that it is important to remember, like you asked me before, are you completely healed from the grief? So the answer to that is that I would say that I'm 80% healed, but there's that 20% that's left where it still hurts and I still have my bad days. And sometimes I'm triggered by people sometimes at work. If I have like a mom that's pregnant or something, and the first child is very little and I have to work with them, like it's still sensitive for me. I'm able to, be professional and get over it and distance my feelings from the situation. But like Mother's Day is still difficult now, for a few reasons, because I've lost my own mother. But Mother's Day was always a hard time for me because I wanted to become a mother and I couldn't. And then there's this whole question of, should I get a rose? Should I get a rose or not? Because I'm not a mother. But anyway, so I'm very active in the childless community, either for World Childless Week, where there's a kind of a poster with your picture that you can make. So that's always fun to do. And you have the qualities that you like or what identifies you. You can write it on your poster. That's part of, finding out who I am in terms of Marie-Helene. I've also participated in many university research studies from all kinds of disciplines, sociology, psychology, women's studies, anthropology, literature, and fine arts, in different kinds of ways. I was interviewed to discuss this topic of being childless on different fronts. But I'm like motivated to participate in these activities for two main reasons. One is because I want to squash the shame.
Let's squash this shit. Oh yes.
I just want to
squash
squash
it.
the shame. I want it to disappear. I don't like feeling the shame of, because for many years, I mean, you've touched on that, but for many years I was like not feeling like a real woman, or being insecure in my femininity because I couldn't have children. I mean, that's over. But I'm like driven to want to participate in these projects. One of the biggest projects was that I participated in a television show here in Quebec called Rire sans tabou. It was a few years ago, and they had an episode on adults without children. So we were 2 men, 2 women, 2 by choice, 2 by circumstance. And it was very, very, because this was on TV, like it was, shown to many people. So it was like me putting my face on.
Yeah. You were putting yourself out there, talking about being seen.
Well, it feels like a coming out. Like I have to think about, like, okay, what are the consequences on my job, on my, like, what are the consequences? Because people are going to know about this. But I find that it's important, like I said, to squash the shame for myself, for other people. And there's another part of me that says, all of what I've gone through, the hardships, the difficulty, the transformations, the work on myself, like, it's not that I don't want it to go to waste, because I did it for myself, but I don't want it to go to waste because I want to share my experience with other people, because I would have liked to have that for myself.
To have that.
And I couldn't find it. I mean, other than the Femmes Sans Enfants group and World Childless Week came afterwards, there isn't much out there for us in terms of support and talking about it on seriously, with different episodes and different ways of talking about this topic. So we're still very few. I mean, we're growing in numbers, but I find that it's important to talk about. I want us to talk about childless and child-free people. It's important to talk about that, because for the infertile couples in Quebec, it was 1 on 6. 1 of every 6 couples are infertile, and for women without children, it's in Quebec, or Canada, it's 1 on 5. So it's becoming increasingly important. There are a lot of people that are living.
It's a big proportion. It's a lot more. Like, it's not like 2 or 3%. Like, we're talking about like 18-20% of the population that is going to live through the childlessness challenges. Like, we're not even talking about the child-free people, right? Like, that's another set of data. I cannot believe the time has flies so much. I just want, because you're talking about the shame and because you're talking about the 80%, there's I love this, and I would love to close on this. So many times we do the work, we get to a place where we're like, we get to that 80, 85, 90%. And then something happens that actually puts the other percentage on the forefront. And I always think about like I used to have a Slinky when I was in Canada. I didn't buy one since I'm in Germany, but I used to have a Slinky that, so you remember the Slinky is kind of like so creating spaciousness, like all the work that we're doing, like create spaciousness between, like either your Slinky is all stacked up or it's actually like aired it out, right? So we might think that we're that we're at the same place, but we're a little bit further on the Slinky side, right? Like we're revisiting, and so every time that we are revisiting like something that is triggering for us, I want us to, because we're talking about shame slaying, right? Like squashing the shame. We have a choice of either shame ourselves for not being healed totally, right? Or we can say, hold on a second, that was like, it's like doing another pass in your cleaning of the house. And every time you do another pass, you do another pass. And we might have this conversation in a year, 2 years, 5 years, and you're going to say, well, I've, 80% to 85 to whatever. My point being, when we think that one day we're going to be rid of it, in the sense that it does not bother us anymore, it's actually a trap to think that, I think personally, because the transformation is a transformation to, like, from something to the other place, right? But when we get to the other place and we continue to evolve, we are not in that place without the transformation.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
So we will never go back to what was before, because we have this experience, and what we choose to do with this experience is what matters. What you choose, Marie-Helene, to do with your experience. We're talking about what you've been through, with getting involved, like with doing all that, with coming on the podcast, we're talking about this. It's not because we did the work for it to be for other people, but we did the work, and we actually are modeling what's possible for others, so they can know that they can be and find themselves in the identity without all of those external tags. And this is what I think that is so important, that we remember when we get back to those little triggers, like we're like, what do you mean? This is supposed to be cleaned up. Well,
I know.
there's always, when I do the spring cleaning, I have to clean again my house. There's always some.
Yeah.
So,
and they come by surprise. Like we say, oh, I thought I was over this. Like what's this feeling that I don't want that again. But yes, I do. That's another part of the acceptance. It's a very complex and long process, but part of this acceptance, and I have now accepted this. It's I don't like it, but I've accepted it, that I will be triggered once in a while. It's going to happen, and I'm going to be kind to myself when this happens, to say that it's a transient feeling or state, and that I'm not back to square one. It's just a temporary blip, and I'm going to continue healing myself and being kind to myself, and I will get over this, and things will be back to my normal 80% where everything is fine. But I have now accepted that I will never be completely healed. I've accepted that.
But you're transformed, which was the whole point.
I am transformed, yes. And like I said, I never in a million years did I think I would be where I am today. And this is a part of the reasons why I want to share this. I'm online a lot on support groups and women that are, you know, going through the shitty part of this. And some of them they're not seeing the light. They're in the crap. They're just it's so hard. And I try as best I can to show them that, you know, there is light there. There is light. It takes a lot of work. I mean, it doesn't happen magically. Like I said, going to therapy, finding solutions to get better it's a daily practice. You have to work at it. You have to want it. You have to want to transform. You have to want to reinvent yourself, and that comes. I mean, it comes with growing pains. It's difficult to do, but if you love life, if you are able to learn to love life again in this other way, in this other life that you didn't choose, it's a pretty good life. Yeah.
That is the perfect ending to this wonderful episode. Thank you so much, Marie-Helene, for coming here, for sharing your experience, for being courageously vulnerable and showing your strength that you actually drew from all of this. I love you so, so much.
I love you too, Maria. Thank you very much for the invitation. It was a pleasure. Like it sped by.
I know, right? So listeners, thank you so much for tuning in today. If you're not a subscriber on the podcast, please subscribe. If you want to leave comment, I'd love to read your comments, and let me know which part of the show you love the most. Thank you. Take care, and I love you.